America's vice president has leapt from relative obscurity, certainly outside the United States, to standing a chance of becoming the best known human on Earth. Her family name would be the most ordinarily English presidential name since Bush, but her given name is one that most English speakers had probably never heard of before she became vice president. As often with a novel word, it's been pronounced in a lot of different ways on both sides of the Atlantic. And in the last few days there's been some controversy over its pronunciation by Alastair Campbell and Rory Stewart, the hosts of the podcast The Rest is Politics.
Rory, we're going to have to get an agreement on how to pronounce her first name. Either we call her Vice President Harris all the time, or we have to agree. Because I got lots of messages saying that you pronounce it correctly, but I pronounce it incorrectly. But I thought I was pronouncing it the same way as you.
Yes, Alastair, you were pronouncing it the same way.
Which was Kamala.
No, Alastair, that's not how you were both pronouncing it. So let's just back up a little bit and look at the ways this name's been pronounced, and why. It's a Sanskrit word meaning lotus, used in India as a girl's name. It's not a common name for girls in the English-speaking world, not yet anyway, so it counts as an exotic word, a borrowing, and given the vagaries of English spelling and pronunciation, that means that a pronunciation for this word isn't necessarily obvious to English speakers. As I explained in another video, there are two common ways of tackling exotic words and names. By far the most established pattern has been to assimilate the word, nativize it, so that it conforms to the spelling pronunciation conventions of English. This can give you Paris, like parish and Harris, Cuba, like cube, or San Pedro, like cathedral, or Einstein rather than Einstein, and on and on and on. Remember that most English words came from somewhere else. So if we were to assimilate this word on the pattern of more familiar English words, we'd have two main options. The first is to follow the model of Camelot, Camera, Pamela, Amazon, Manager, Hamilton, Aniston. In other words, stress the first syllable, pronouncing it with the vowel of gather and trap. So option A, Camela, like camel. Not surprisingly, this option has been pretty popular.
Kamala Harris.
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 And this, Alastair, is the one that you used throughout this live stream, along with Rory and Catty Kay and Anthony Scaramucci.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala, it's the same record. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
A second option is to follow the pattern of koala, impala, la scala, kampala, masala, and if you're British, gala. Americans say gala. So option B, Kamala like koala. This has been quite popular too.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Some speakers use both option A and option B.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
And I think ironically, Alastair even produced a hybrid of the camel option and the koala option.
Kamala Harris.
Alastair and Rory should perhaps bear in mind that the koala pronunciation has already been weaponised in the American culture war and become a sort of badge for the right.
Kamala Harris.
A few Americans, by the way, go for Kamala, like American gala.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
But the camel and the koala options are both nativizations. A different approach to exotic words is to not assimilate them, but to try and copy the assumed pronunciation in the source language, like garage copying French garage, compared with the assimilated garage, which is quite common in Britain. Now, especially in recent decades, American English has gone for this non-assimilation policy in a big way, developing a kind of one-size-fits-all strategy for pronouncing the vowels of all foreign words and names. I published an article on this long ago, and I described it in my other video. This strategy includes the generalization that if an exotic word has a stressed letter A, then that A should be pronounced with the American vowel of father and palm, and not with the American vowel of gather and trap and MAGA, which is now felt to be somehow too American. This gives, for example, pasta, unlike English plastic, and taco, unlike English tactic, and Vietnam, unlike English dynamic. It's a relatively new strategy. Panama went the old way, but Yamaha goes the new way. Novak went the old way. Slovak seems to be going the new way. Back in the 70s, George Lucas allowed Billy D. Williams to say Han Solo.
We'll find Han.
But Americans are now in agreement that a galaxy far, far away is exotic enough to require the taco treatment. And if we apply this strategy to the Vice President's name, we get what has now become the majority pronunciation in the US, and the one she herself uses.
I am Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Problem solved, right? Rory and Alistair can simply do the same, and Catty and Mooch likewise. Well, the Mooch can switch easily enough if he chooses to, but for the other three and the rest of us English folk, it's not quite that easy. Rory and Alistair, by the way, have Scottish parents and names, but they sound English. So why is it not straightforward for people like us to say the American style Kamala? Well, for one thing, our accent never developed this strategy of avoiding the option A gather camel vowel in foreign words. It was a specifically US development. Just listen to Canadian actor Donald Sutherland. In the space of a single scene, he says Nazi, Vietnam, Dalai Lama, and Mafia.
I helped evacuate part of the Nazi intelligence apparatus, got the Dalai Lama out, the Mafia, and he set out to withdraw from Vietnam.
So we're not under the same pressure to avoid the most obvious nativization, Kamala. Besides, our gather camel vowel isn't such a bad fit for the ah of so many languages. Not as bad a fit as the American air. Listen to this Englishwoman.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
I don't think that sounds too strange, but this part has been crudely spliced in from a Mexican woman saying
Tacos. Tacos.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
It would make no phonetic sense for us to take instead our vowel from father and calm and put that into taco. And it makes even less phonetic sense to put that vowel into Kamala because of something called, now don't click away, trisyllabic shortening. As I explained in this video, Southern British English retains the historic distinction between short and long vowels. This is common in Germanic languages, but American English lost it. In my video, I show how American actors sometimes get this wrong when they do Southern British accents. Now, our vowel in gather and camel is short, but our vowel in father and calm is long. And English has had for centuries something called trisyllabic shortening, which refers to a tendency in three-syllable words for a stressed first vowel to be short. It's why the long vowels in words like type and brief and grain and cone become short in typical and brevity and granular and conical. So it goes against this trisyllabic shortening to put a long vowel in the first syllable of Camelot or Kamala. If you're American, you don't really have short and long vowels, so it just doesn't matter. Incidentally, the language Tamil, which I think was spoken by the Vice President's mother, also has a distinction between short and long vowels, and apparently the name in Tamil has a final long vowel.
Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris.
American commenters have tried to help Alistair and Rory out.
So what all the explainer says that you have to pronounce it like comma.
Kamala. Kamala.
But of course, these are Americans
Exactly.
who pronounce
they say
comma.
comma.
Exactly.
You see, key to the American loss of distinctive length was the American loss of the historic difference, which we still have, between balm and bomb, between the vowels of father and bother, or of calm and comma. This is why the words on the left have an A and the words on the right have an O. They're different vowels. Very different, because the one on the left is long and the one on the right is short. We, of course, lost the distinction between karma and karma due to historic R dropping. And that's why presumably British commenters were trying to help out by invoking karma. Now you might say that if our vowel in comma is short, then that gets round the trisyllabic shortening problem. If we have conical and ominous and solitude and globular and jocular and holiday, why not comala?
Comala.
For one thing, just as Carmela is too long, Comala is too short. And besides, the quality is wrong. Our short O is rounded. Not to mention the psychological stretch of pronouncing a spelling like K-A-M with a short O. So if our long R isn't right and our short O isn't right, what then?
And I keep talking to my wife about it, who calls American. So Shoshana's conclusion is it's somewhere between an O and an A. It's somewhere between an O and an A. Between an O and an A.
I think somebody should give Rory's wife an honorary degree in phonetics, because the between insight is fundamental, and without it you can't seriously compare languages or dialects. As I showed in my other video, the Italian vowel in basta isn't the American vowel in pasta, or my vowel in pasta. It's in between. The Vice President's vowel in Kamala isn't my vowel in calm, or my vowel in camel, or my vowel in comma. It's in between. When you study phonetics, you begin to get a sense of the larger canvas on which all these things are painted. If you want more on that, here's another of my videos. So the American commenters on The Rest is Politics, who were implying that all of this is straightforward, were being a little bit phonetically naive. And the reason they were praising Rory at poor Alistair's expense is because Rory evidently had coaching from his wife between the live stream and the following podcast.
Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Harris.
And it also seems that Alistair was paying attention to Rory's new improved pronunciation, as we heard at the start of this video.
Kamala.
Again.
Kamala.
I think he's got it. I think he's got it.
But for most Southern Brits, most of the time, the problem remains. It's just not realistic to expect people to use a sound from outside their own phonetic system whenever they say one particular word or name. It would be like expecting Americans to use our short O every time they say Bond. So if after November she becomes increasingly rather than decreasingly famous, I think most British journalists will settle on Kamala or the non-trisyllabic shortened Carmela. After all, if you say it quickly enough, karma comes out sounding more or less right anyway.
Come on, chameleon.